All right. Well, hello, and welcome to a research and insights-based exploration of marketing that brings meetings. I'm Erin Francis Cummings, President and CEO of Destination Analysts, joining you from San Francisco, California.
And I'm Miha Gallagher, Senior Research Director, joining you from Denver, Colorado.
Our company, Destination Analysts, is a market research firm that has been serving the destination marketing industry for nearly 2 decades. More than 200 DMOs have partnered with us to research and answer their most urgent and important questions about their customers, clients, and tourism marketing strategy. We consistently push to uncover the human element behind decision making, which leads our DMO clients to better engagement across the entire customer journey and ultimately helps them establish a deeper relationship between themselves and their own clients. In our work, Miha and I have designed numerous surveys, focus groups, and interviews of meeting planners to help DMO sales and marketing professionals gain critical knowledge on how to position their destination as an ideal place for meetings and their organization as an ally to meeting planners. Having been with us on many of these journeys into the minds of meeting planners, I would like to thank our longtime partners and collaborators at Miles Partnership Agency, particularly my friend, Senior Vice President Laura Libby, who's joining us today.
Thanks, Erin. Miles is excited to work with Destination Analysts on this important research and many other projects. We started working together on the meetings research back in 2017, and this year the annual co-op research will be deployed in October. But today we're going to look at a special edition of the research that's really focusing on these unique times we are currently in. As we meet virtually today, we know that this opens the door to hybrid meetings becoming the norm, and that presents a new opportunity to expand the reach of meetings and offer new sponsorship experiences, among other things. It may take a year or more to really realize these true benefits and to navigate hybrid meetings, but we feel like this time affords the meetings industry the opportunity to prioritize and focus on creating meaningful experiences virtually that can be folded into the in-person shows in the future. These are just a few thoughts about the changes we see coming from our current situation. And I want to turn it back to Erin now to review the methodology of today's study, as well as some additional findings.
So the research you'll be seeing today is based on an online survey conducted of meeting planners just a few weeks ago in June, and we could have 300 completed surveys in total. On today's agenda, a profile of meeting planners, including how the COVID-19 crisis has impacted them, perspectives on the who and how of the industry's recovery, the challenges meeting planners are feeling faced with and how you can help them, and ideas and tactics that will help you best market your destination. Please note that we will use the acronym CVB for the remainder of our presentation, as that's consistent with how the vast majority of meeting planners continue to refer to your organizations.
So first, let's dig into the profile of meeting planners studied in this research. We surveyed a mix of planners who represent each of the 3 major generations, and throughout the presentation, we'll be highlighting differences between baby boomers, Gen X, and millennial planners. The graphic on the right shows where in the country these meeting planners are located, and there is representation from each of the 4 major regions of the US. And the planners captured in our survey sample plan for a wide swath of groups, with the most common being private sector businesses, national associations, nonprofits, and international associations. And just over 40% of meeting planners said that they are currently working with CVBs. And by meeting planner type, association and third-party planners are the most likely to be working with CVBs right now. By generation, baby boomers and Gen X planners are the most likely groups to be working with CVBs currently, and millennial planners are the least likely, and we'll see how this translates into other findings later in this presentation. So in this next section, we'll see how this pandemic has impacted the meetings industry. We asked planners to share how many live meetings or events they've had to cancel since the coronavirus situation emerged. And the typical meeting planner has had to cancel 5.8 in-person programs. By meeting planner type, third-party planners have had to cancel more live meetings, averaging 6.9, followed by corporate planners with 5.6 and association planners with 5.5 canceled events. When asked when these canceled meetings were originally scheduled to take place, we see a bulk of these programs were slated for Q2 and Q3 of this year. Although we're also seeing cancellations of live events through the end of 2020 and early into 2021. Meeting planners have also had to postpone a number of their events and programs, although sadly to a lesser degree than the number of outright cancellations. By planner type, third-party planners have had to postpone the most with 5.3 programs on average, followed by association planners with 4.1 and corporate planners with 3.4. As of now, there are some live meetings that have been rescheduled to take place in the remainder of 2020. However, most have been pushed to Q2 of 2021 or later. And again, looking at the live meetings and events planners currently have on the books, we see a major shift towards 2021, particularly in Q2 and Q3 of next year. However, dialing back to 2020 specifically, we see that 18% of planners have something on the books for Q3 of this year, and 38% have events planned for Q4. Focusing in again on the meetings and events scheduled or even just considered for 2020, just over half of meeting planners say they indeed are currently working on a program that at least tentatively will take place this year. And of those working on programs for 2020, just under half say definitively these scheduled live meetings will have a virtual option. Another 41.2% are not yet decided on offering a virtual alternative.
And as you are all deeply knowledgeable of, a core principle of sales is listening, learning from your customer how and where you can help them. So you can view the remainder of what we'll be covering today as that, listening to your key customers. Also, a difficult but important thing to remember as you communicate to meeting planners right now is that they care about their business, not necessarily yours. You'll be more successful if you approach them with how you are here to help message. So let's take the time to look deeper into their world right now. Like the rest of us, it's ripe with challenges. What's on their mind is concern. There is a high degree of anxiety about the industry's ability to recover in the next year. 89% feel a significant degree of concern about this. As of last week, when we finished fielding this survey, only 1 in 5 planners feel live meetings will return in 2020. Think about how that must feel for them, essentially an entire year of their traditional business lost. Nevertheless, about half feel they will return in the first half of 2021, and fortunately, only 2% are feeling it won't be until 2022. But they don't feel that the meetings industry will return to a normalcy or something close to it until the latter half of 2021 or later. Who will drive the return to normalcy first? When asked which groups would be the first to return to live events, sports and corporate garnered the most agreement. Many also see religious organizations being among the first to come back live. State and regional associations show up around here. National associations appear far lower. Confidence among corporate, state, and regional association planners is even higher for their types of meetings to be among the first to return. In terms of what business will be slower to return live, there's the most agreement that international associations and school groups will take the longest to come back. Government planners tend to have more pessimism about how long it will take to return to live events. There is some split among corporate planners. Clearly, there are some who represent or work in industries that are not going to be returning to live meetings quickly. And on that note, and with all the work they are doing online as we are right now, we also wanted to learn if planners are feeling there are some previously live events that are going to stay virtual and never return live. 73% agree that there are indeed some companies, organizations, and attendees who will stick with virtual as the platform for their previously live meetings. This sentiment was particularly strong among millennial meeting planners, sobering given this generation will soon comprise the greatest number of decision-making professionals. We inquired about a number of industries displayed on this chart and asked meeting planners if they felt each would be increasing, maintaining, or decreasing their live events in 2021. As the red bar represents the percent who feel each industry will be decreasing their live events next year, it's clear why a third are looking at 2022 as when we will be closer to a normalcy. The gray bar represents the percent of meeting planners that feel the industry will be maintaining their live events, and the green is the percent that feel each industry will be increasing their live events. The most challenged industries in terms of live meeting volume, that is those with the biggest deficits of less to more, are perceived to be retail, government, education, and youth and amateur sports. Those perceived to have relatively stronger meetings volume include medical, pharmaceutical, and tech.
And although the outlook may seem dire from these stats, I recently interviewed several meeting planners about what they thought about the industry's recovery and return. And in their words, the ones I interviewed were in strong agreement that the most critical parts of live meetings cannot be effectively achieved in a virtual setting, that the benefits were simply not replaceable, and that in-person interaction would be more valued than ever. And it's not just meeting planners being overly optimistic about the situation for the sake of their own professional industry. We also talked to past convention attendees, and they have also echoed these same sentiments, that whatever conveniences the virtual environment poses, it does not outweigh the enormous benefits of in-person meetings, and that in-person social interaction is missed and seen as irreplaceable.
Miha, do you realize the irony of us espousing Zoom fatigue and the benefits of live meetings right now?
I certainly do. Now, going back to the challenges that meeting planners are facing, 59% are saying dealing with force majeure issues are a serious problem for their organizations right now. And while over half of all meeting planner segments agreed with this, it appears to be an even more pressing issue for third-party planners and association planners. However, 54% feel that the pandemic will end up giving more negotiating power to planners and less to hotels. When asked if they were having to do anything for their meetings now that they weren't prior to the pandemic, over 3/4 of meeting planners said yes. And to explore the new landscape that planners find themselves in, we asked in an open-ended format what these new requests were. And the top responses were creating social distancing protocols for their live meetings, identifying and communicating the health and safety protocols being enacted at meetings venues, and creating a full virtual meetings experience. About 15% of this group is also having to source additional meeting space to allow for social distancing, and having to make contract changes and creating hybrid meeting experiences with virtual and live meeting components. In terms of the biggest challenges they expect to face in the current environment, about 1/4 of planners also expect that getting their organizations or clients to even hold live meetings again will be a major challenge, but generating attendance to their meetings and making their meetings safe tops the list.
And that's why it's critical to bring in another voice into how you are approaching meetings marketing right now, the most numerous of voices, and that's the meeting attendee. Since March 15th, we have conducted a weekly survey of 1,200 traveling consumers, Destination Analysts Coronavirus Travel Sentiment Index, in order to provide the travel industry ongoing insights into how Americans are thinking and behaving when it comes to travel. In the survey that we fielded just days ago, we asked a number of questions of those who attend conventions and conferences and the like about how they are feeling about these events. Right now, 71% of conference attendees say they are likely to avoid conferences and conventions until the coronavirus situation is more resolved. While this is down from a high of 80% in mid-April, this resistance among meeting attendees remains significant. And while 2/3 have some degree of trust in the conference organizers to look out for their health, a metric that has been stable for the last 2 months, only 54% have some level of trust in their fellow attendees to behave in such a way that protects others from contracting or spreading COVID-19. And sadly, this metric has eroded 7% since May. You can see this wariness of other attendees and what they selected as the top 5 operational practices that would make them feel most confident that the organization hosting a live conference is looking after their health. Required face coverings and enforced social distancing are key desires, as is limited attendance. Enhanced cleaning is obviously in high demand as well. As expressed by these travelers themselves, safety is paramount in their minds, and their return to these events will need to be led by the meeting planner and you, the destination, with caution and patience, even if they are just using these as an escape from their spouse.
While social distancing at live meetings is a major priority for both the planners and for meetings attendees, planners overwhelmingly are feeling that this will be a challenge. In fact, 85% of planners agree that enforcing social distancing among their attendees will be extremely challenging in a live meeting environment. And to gauge whether this will affect how planners source venues, we asked if they would be more likely to use multiple host properties to account for capacity limitations and social distancing. And we found that nearly a third said that they are more likely to do so. In looking at those more likely to use multiple host properties, corporate planners appear slightly more likely to make this logistical shift compared to third-party and association planners. And by generation, millennial planners and baby boomers appear to be more likely to do so than Gen X planners. So will hybrid meetings be the norm for the next year? Over 3/4 of planners think so, with very few, just 7%, disagreeing.
And with this need for hybrid virtual meetings, new thresholds for health and safety in the midst of a pandemic, how do you position your destination for the share of live meetings? First, let's look at potential substitution effects in site selection. 31.7% of meeting planners expect that the types of destinations that they select for their meetings and events will change over the next 12 months. The sense is slightly more prevalent among corporate planners. We asked those meeting planners who felt the destinations they choose for their meetings would change, or how they would describe these changes. These planners are looking at destinations within driving distance for their attendees that are viewed as safe and not virus hotspots. We also asked all meeting planners their agreement that certain destination types would have an opportunity they might not have had before to attract meetings and events business due to lingering fears. Fully 50% agreed that beach destinations and resorts would have additional opportunities for meetings business that they would not have had before. Similarly, 51% agreed smaller towns and rural destinations would have greater opportunity to win meetings. City and urban destinations certainly remain challenged by the pandemic for meetings, but are still in the consideration set. 44% of meeting planners agree they would still consider cities and metropolitan areas for their meeting programs in this current environment. Given the pandemic's course, we looked at whether certain geographic areas of the United States have become more attractive to meeting planners. There's the strongest agreement that the Midwest has gained an appeal in this environment, having largely avoided being a blazing hotspot for the outbreak. This has made the Midwest region particularly favored by baby boomer planners. Millennial planners were likely to show preference for the Northeast and West. But more so than generation, personal location is key to destination appeal right now. Put simply, meeting planners generally feel the geographic region that they are personally located in is more attractive for their programs right now.
And to help CVBs more effectively message to meeting planners, we asked what information they want advertised to them right now, and largely planners need to know about local policies and safety protocols. More specifically, the information you should strongly consider including in your ads are current cancellation policies, out-of-state traveler restrictions and requirements, updated capacity limits for hotels and other meeting venues, and information about the actions your destination is taking to keep visitors safe. And I do want to note that much of this information is needed for planners to communicate to their own attendees to convince them that it is safe to attend live events again. And to drive this point home, I wanted to share one quote in particular. The health and well-being of attendees is a meeting planner's first priority. So being a partner to us means that CVBs are helping us navigate the situation and helping us communicate to our attendees that it is safe to come to their destinations and help us show why that's safe. Planners and attendees need to know the specific details about gathering in your city, including policies and procedures from the perspective of the entire meetings experience. In addition to sharing important policy and safety information with planners, another potential way to get their attention is offering deals and discounts. Well over half of planners said that they expect to take advantage of price cuts from travel providers for their meetings in the next year. And looking at this by generation, it appears that older planners are much likelier to take advantage of price cuts than younger planners. Let's now look at how you can get this information in front of meeting planners. And the top resources they regularly access when researching destinations to source for their meetings include word of mouth from colleagues, general internet searches, and official destination websites. In fact, 71% of meeting planners said they use at least one CVB resource in their research phase. However, comparing this to findings in 2019, the use of CVB resources is down a bit from 79%. And this is largely due to a decrease in the use of CVB-hosted events and also CVB contacts. In contrast, 2020 has seen an uptick in the use of general internet searches. Last year, this figure stood at 43%, and social media websites, previously at 9%, doubling this year to 18%. In looking at resources used by meeting planner type, we see that corporate planners are likelier to use hotel corporate sales offices. Meanwhile, association and third-party planners are similarly likely to use CVB-hosted events and a contact at the CVB. But third-party planners are likelier to use Cvent, and association planners are likelier to use trade websites. Now, by generation, we found that millennials are less likely to rely on CVB-hosted events, but as one might expect, they are more likely to use social media sites. In contrast, boomers are more likely to rely upon print resources such as meeting planner guides published by the CVB, trade magazines, travel magazines, and printed official visitor guides.
How then, more specifically, do meeting planners want to work with you, the CVB? What do they currently view you as helping them with, and what do you do better than everyone else? First, it's clear that the majority of meeting planners want to work with CVBs right now and view you as an important resource. 66% of meeting planners surveyed agreed with the statement, "For my work, convention and visitors bureaus will be an important resource for doing business in the pandemic period." Third-party and association planners currently understand the value CVBs provide them. As we have seen consistently in our research over the last many years, CVBs still have more inroads to make with corporate planners in positioning and communicating their value. And it's not just corporate planners. The need for CVBs to communicate their value is more widespread. As shown earlier in the presentation, millennial-age planners are less likely to have used a CVB recently. They're therefore far less likely than baby boomer planners to view working with CVBs as a valuable choice. Given the size and impending impact of the millennial generation on meetings, this chart should be a wake-up call. So, what can CVBs do? In meeting planners' words, they can be at the table with them, facilitating negotiations with the hotels, help them make rebooking business easier, make connections for them with your trusted providers in your city, and simply be available for a call or a discussion. Make them feel less alone right now.
However, half of planners do expect that the financial issues CVBs are facing due to the pandemic will adversely affect their ability to plan successful meetings. This again speaks to the important role that CVBs play, not only as a resource, but as a partner to meeting planners. And are meeting planners expecting CVBs to assist in providing personal protective equipment to their attendees? 38% said yes. But the most remarkable finding is perhaps this one. 45% of planners feel that CVBs can still play a helpful role to meeting planners, even when their event is virtual. And I want you to keep this in mind as we look into CVB resources that planners are interested in. So we first asked in an open-ended format what services CVBs should focus on providing to help planners during the remainder of 2020. And as we saw earlier, planners want information on safety measures and local health guidelines, in addition to updates on the destination's reopening and incentives. Further down the list, just 3.5% wrote in that they wanted assistance with their virtual meetings. However, in the next question, we provided a list of specific resources related to virtual meetings and noted high levels of interest amongst planners. Here, we asked how interested planners would be in each of the following from CVBs, and this chart is showing you the top 2 box score for each. Now, topping the list here is visualizations of social distancing at live meetings, followed closely by local safety and cleaning protocols for group meetings. But as I just mentioned, over half of meeting planners also expressed interest in resources related to virtual meetings, particularly guidance for hosting hybrid meetings and materials and ideas to make the virtual event experience feel like it's live in their city. And another resource that most planners are looking to CVBs for are information on local hotel reopenings and upcoming availability. If you're not already compiling and sharing this information with planners, you should be. And in my conversations with meeting planners, they shared what some CVBs have done and what they can do to increase consideration and engagement from planners. And the notable highlights are having consistent messaging, offering no cancellation fees and no attrition for meetings hosted this year, providing guidance and resources to help them navigate creating virtual meetings experiences, and offering incentives like giveaways on webinars. Now, with the uptick in usage of social media for destination research, we asked planners how often they engage with CVB content on these 3 social channels. LinkedIn and Facebook appear to be the best channels to reach planners, though nearly a quarter also say that they regularly or sometimes engage with CVB content on Instagram. And if there was any doubt in your mind about the importance of the selling, marketing, and advertising you are responsible for, you can put that to rest now, because a majority of planners agree it is important that CVBs advertise and promote their destinations, even through this profound and prolonged crisis.
Thank you for joining us into this research-based look at the marketing that brings meetings. If there are any statistic or insights you want to ponder over further or have in your back pocket for later, this entire deck is available for you to download now at destinationanalysts.com/2020 meetings. On September 2nd at 3 p.m. Eastern, we and the Miles Partnership Team will be hosting a webinar presentation on the latest findings and the actions you should consider based on them from the Traveler Segments and Technology Adoption edition of our quarterly The State of the American Traveler study. You can also join us at Destination Analysts each Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern for the foreseeable future for an update on American travel trends and perspectives in the pandemic period from our weekly Coronavirus Travel Sentiment Index study. You can register to attend and receive the research at destinationanalysts.com. If you need further insights for your upcoming decisions and strategy, we are happy to help. We have a full suite of research services available to you now. Please feel welcome to reach out to us if there is anything you would like to discuss further. If you would like to participate in the October meeting planner research co-op we are conducting, or if you would like us to present these findings to your teams, boards, or stakeholders. We'll now go to as many questions as we can live before returning you to the main session. All right, so we'll give a minute. Our room moderator says that we do not have questions yet. If you have them, please go ahead and type them into the chat now. We did receive a question about October's meetings research co-op. So that will be another online survey of meeting planners that we'll conduct then. We also will do several interviews with meeting planners to explore more deeply their feelings. Then the focus of that research will be on advertising and marketing, as this one largely was. And DMOs that participate in that co-op will be able to have the opportunity to have their advertising concepts and existing ads tested and receive feedback from meeting planners. And given that we are now in the period of COVID-19, we did get a question on changes in questions from year to year. And yes, we will adapt the research and the questionnaire to address the current situation that we are all in. Yes, so if you started questions coming in about follow-up, if you have any further subjects that you would like us to address in our next survey, which again will be in October, please feel free to reach out to me and Miha, and we will discuss those with you and get those incorporated. We look forward to hearing from all of you about more things that you'd like to learn that will help you with your marketing your destination for meetings. Miha, we can see why our convention attendees miss live events. Q&A is definitely a different experience on virtual.
Absolutely.
So we'll wait for a few more questions to come in on the chat. We have Alyssa here as our moderator from Destinations International. Alyssa, is there anything else, or do you want us to end? Okay. Okay. Well, thank you again for joining us. Again, you can find this deck right now if you need it at destinationanalyst.com/2020 meetings. And we are here to discuss with you any follow-up that you may have. Have a great rest of convention. We'll see you online.